Welcome to Kintyre Smart Dairy Farm Limited. This is a farm where we are farming on 12.43 hectares, and today I'm standing on piles of hay that we harvest on the roadsides and on the mountainside. So the species star grass, highly nutritious for dairy cattle, and it's costing us about $1.60 to make a bale of hay. Our demand or our budget for hay on this farm is this year estimated at 7,000 bales required to see us through the year, and our excess bales of hay are sold to our neighbors and to other farmers who are looking for hay. A total of 5,650 bales were sold last year. That was in excess of what we had, and we still had extra this year before we started cutting. We use the whole 12 hectares for growing fodder. What we grow here, we grow our own soybean, which will be roasted for the dairy cattle. And we also grow maize, which will be put into silage and green chop. We grow Sudan sorghum grass and sorghum sugar glaze. And in winter, we grow alfalfa, oats, and ryegrass, because the winters in Zimbabwe are very cold and we actually have to switch to the winter growing crops. Maize will grow slower, but here on this farm we grow throughout the year from January to December. The entire land is used for fodder production.
Kintyre Smart Dairy started in 2019, December 2019 to be precise. And then we were still working in Kenya at the time. In January 2020, we went back to Kenya. And then because of COVID, we were locked away in Kenya until October of 2020. But our first lot of animals, seven heifers, came in about June of 2020. We then came back to Zimbabwe when borders were opened in October of 2020. That is when now we started the construction of the barns, the milking parlor. I am a member of HAWAFA, and this is a network of women in agriculture, livestock being one of them. So like I said, this RAS project is very important to us, because if anything, one of the most limiting of factors when it comes to our dairy production is the feed. And our feed really, you look at us, we are on a very small piece of land. We really will rely also on buying in fodder from others, and that sector is not formalized. So it's really good for the sector to be stratified and formalized, so that people, when people are thinking fodder, they are just it's nested somehow under livestock. But you see, that is a standalone. And if anything, it's really where we are starting before we even talk the livestock, because we need fodder for our livestock. So like I said, it's very good that we have this project, and I'm sure it's going to look at the whole value chain, the feed and fodder value chain, whereby maybe there are people working on the seeds, people working on the harvesting of the fodder, people working maybe on the silage production, hay, marketing, transporting, all the little nodes in that value chain, and it's a very welcome initiative to us. So as you do your numbers for the feed that you need to allow per cow, for instance, if it's a cow that is still growing, you need to allow for its maintenance, growth, and then now if it's pregnant, also the pregnancy, and then if it's pregnant and milking, the milking too. So right now what we're feeding our animals is a mix. Our high producers, we are giving them dairy milk. It's a mix, it's a total mix ration consisting of silage, brewer's waste, which we call masese, silage. So I think I've talked about silage, the dairy milk, and the brewer's waste. So that is what we are giving our high producers. And for those ones, we are targeting a crude protein of about 18 to 20%. I borrowed how I started doing my enterprise from Kenya, actually, David, I think through Performeter, because I think there's a video that they did regarding what you needed to know, what you needed to do before you go into dairy. I think of most importance are the feed budgets. You really can't start by bringing your animals to a farm without the feed, because that is recipe for disaster. So if anything, one of the key things that I would really want to see sorted before anyone even starts is the feed, followed maybe by the water, because also milk is water basically, and an animal has potential of drinking 200 plus liters of water, so that also needs to be sorted. And then the housing, you can start simple, if you can't afford complex housing, because if anything, shade is very important for these exotic animals. They really can't stand a lot of heat. So those ones I think are 4. So the challenges that I face are the same challenges that men face in our industry. I think the biggest one being the cost of feed. It's very, very costly. And then we also have other inputs like fuel and electricity, very costly. But I can also, maybe looking at other women, indeed I can appreciate the challenges, because when it comes to cash flow, one really has to know how to manage their cash flow, and they also have to maybe have mechanisms in place to just backstop that cash flow, because our cows just need to eat every day 24/7. So one really needs to have that one sorted, otherwise there will be serious problems. My vision, like I said, right now I told you we are milking about 22 cows at a go, but we are targeting, our initial target was 100, but I see that we can even up it to about 200 cows per day, with an average production maybe of about 25. So if you just do 25 times 200, you can actually see the kind of production level that we are targeting and envisioning. And then eventually also I just want to do a bit of processing, because I think really that is where the money is.
When manure is coming from the barns, it comes into digester bags, which we are going to fit. We have not yet fitted, but so far it comes into this pit, it digests. After digesting, when the pit is full, the tractor uses the PTO-driven pump to pump the manure into the field, as you have seen, and that helps us in improving yields of our fodder, yields of maize, yields of sorghum, yields of stargrass, yields of oats, alfalfa, and all what we intend to feed our animals. The soils will hold water better, because they'll be having organic instead of inorganic manure.
I'm happy to have come to this farm, because I have observed, first of all, if you look at the animals, the feeding is sufficient on nutrition. When you saw me picking what the cows are eating on the trough, that shows that the mix of components in the feed is good. That equipment you see there, the total ration mixer, is mixing different components to ensure that the feed that cows are eating is balanced. See, they have separated the animals. Some animals are high yielding because they're in their early stage of lactation. They're eating a different diet compared to those ones that are in late lactation or are dry. That also tells you that they understand how they should be able to feed animals. So animals are sufficiently fed both on nutrition and also on intake, dry matter intake. So you see they are full, their body condition is good. We are in this country this week discussing fodder, because this is really what determines whether cows are going to be well fed and whether they are going to produce optimally. So what I see here is cows that are ready to produce because they're well fed. I also see another potential in this farm. This farm has more land that they can utilize for fodder, to produce fodder for their animals. They have sheep, they have cows, and also sell to the neighbors. So that means that if we have this as a commercial fodder producer, these are people who produce for their own production, and the remainder of their production is also available to to be bought by those other farmers who may not have sufficient land for their animals. And finally, I noted something, that they're able to utilize the grass that is growing naturally in the ranges. So they're able to harvest. That is also very important. Sometimes this grass grows during the rainy season, it dries, it's forgotten. But what they have done, they have bought sufficient machinery to be able to send the cutters to the small forest there. They cut the grass, they come and bale it. That grass may not be perfect, but it produces fiber. It gives fiber to the animals, and that is what they need for their rumen to work. So one may think that, oh, we can only rely on cultivated grass. Good, because you can fertilize it, you can irrigate it. But there's also a lot of wasted grass on the roadsides, on the shrubs, that is forgotten. So what they have done, they send their workers with a tractor, go and cut that grass, come and bale it, keep it. During the dry feeding, the time like this when there is drought, some of that grass would be very useful. There is no need for any animal to die when we have that kind of grass. Sometimes we compromise on nutrition, but we have to keep them alive. And that grass is what comes in handy. So I'm very happy about the practices of even utilizing available resources that didn't necessarily use their money to establish. That is a very good practice. So I'm happy about the farm and the practice they're doing. And I think this is a resource farm where farmers can come and see things that are happening here, and especially on feeding. The owner of this farm is a breeder, so also a few things to learn about breeding, and also bring up a good herd that can feed the country and give nutrition that we are lacking in Africa. Thank you very much.